Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is a video that I'm very excited about. Welcome to a brand new series on this channel. Welcome to, I don't actually have a name for this yet. I probably will by the time that I have finished filming this video, but basically today we are going to read some smut. Well, I'm going to read some smut and I'm going to bring you along with me. So I am going to be reading the Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas. This is a dark romance, kind of taboo erotica series. I've actually read the first 3 books in the series, but the 4th book, Nightfall, just came out this year, I believe in September, and I finally have time to reread the first 3 books and finally finish the series by reading Nightfall. I'm very excited. This video I'm basically just going to vlog while I reread the first 3 and then read the 4th and final book, tell you guys what I think, have a few little discussions, and I'm hoping that this will be something I'll be able to do every month. Pick a book or a series that is a little bit smutty, a little bit steamy, and I can read them, chat with you guys about them. You guys can maybe read them too as well. If you want to know what I will be reading over the month of October for November's video, wait until the end. I will have picked the series by that point. So if you want to know what book I will be reading next, definitely stick around. But apart from that, I really don't have much else to say. I am going to go and start reading Corrupt, which is book 1. Okay, I don't know exactly what percentage of the way through the book I am. I've just finished chapter 8. I think I'm like close to chapter 10. I'm not gonna lie, not a lot has happened. Very much just a whole lot of setup. We've met our main characters, Erica and Michael. Their relationship. Okay, Erica has always had a thing for Michael, and she's always thought that Michael's like ignored her, but Michael very much has a thing for Erica. We learned this straight away, right? Michael's 3 friends, Will, Kai, and Damon, have all been in prison, and they recently just gotten released. They've just all come out of prison recently, and we learn that they have plans for revenge, specifically to get revenge on Erica. Now, we don't know what Erica has done. The book kind of alternates. We have Erica's point of view, we have, what is his name? Michael's point of view, but we also get flashbacks to one particular Devil's Night, which I assume is the night that was like the night where they all got sent to prison. I'm pretty sure like something happens on this night, and whatever happens is why those 3 boys go to prison. I say boys, they're legally 18, like on the night that this has happened. They're adults. The series is called the Devil's Night series because they're called the 4 Horsemen, or at least that's what they used to be called in high school, because it's Michael and his 3 friends, and basically on Devil's Night, Halloween, they would all go around and they would do like pranks, except really serious pranks. Like they're not like toilet papering someone's house. It's like kind of dangerous. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not really interested in what is going on. I definitely think rereading this has something to do with it, because I'm reading things and I'm remembering what's happened. Like what is going to happen, what it's foreshadowing, what this means. I know everything. I know everything that's going to happen. So maybe that's just it. Maybe it's just because I know what's happening that it's not interesting to me. I definitely remember being more invested the first time around. I mean, I will say I do think the relationship building between Erica and Michael has been good so far. Erica very much is like the good girl, and Michael, who is like, obviously he's like a bad boy. The thing that Michael says is that like no one understands Erica except for him. Kind of. He doesn't say that exactly. At one point he says like no one actually knows that you aren't as like good as everyone thinks that you are, and Eric is like, yeah, kind of. I kind of want to be like not as good all the time. And I think it's done well, the way that Michael encourages Erica to be herself and to not be afraid of making mistakes and things like that. But I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel about that later on in the book. I can't remember exactly how bad things get, so I will just have to see about that. But that is basically it. I just thought I'd give you guys an update. I'm like a quarter of the way through, so not very far in, but that's where we're at right now. Okay, excuse me, I can't sit up right now, but I finished reading Corrupt Thoughts. I have had many. So I figured out pretty quickly where the plot was going, what was happening, all that stuff. So I didn't really feel like I had to update you guys on what was happening as it happened. But I did have plenty of thoughts and opinions. I think the last time I updated you guys, I wasn't even 50% of the way through. I was on like chapter 10. Basically nothing happens for the first half of the book. It's very much all just set up, not only for this book but for the like rest of the series, if I remember correctly. And then from like the 50% mark onwards, it's like Erica and Michael having sex, Erica and Michael messing with each other, obviously the whole thing where they're trying to ruin her life. This is definitely not an easy romance story to really get behind. They definitely fuck around with Erica a lot. I don't even know how else to say it. Like, this is fucked up, right? Like, Erica says so many times that they fuck with her mind too much. Like, it's too much to deal. They're pushing her too far, that kind of thing. But she's still... It's really hard because she obviously likes it in a sense. Like, we learn right at the start. She's sick of being treated like she's too precious. She wants to be challenged. And she likes that Michael challenges her. She likes that. So there's no issue necessarily with the things that her and Michael do. She takes on the challenges, which really makes it hard to know where to stand because she fights back. It's not as like simple as like these four men being terrible to her, because she does push back. She is terrible back. Things definitely escalate at the end when Trevor, Erica's ex from the start, and Michael's younger brother, he comes back. He's a whole complicated plot twist thing. I'm not going to tell you. You can read it if you want. I think the end of the book, just not my favorite. Like I'm not going to lie, I quite like the twisted and like dark romance part of it. I think it's interesting. Definitely interesting, definitely different, right? And it definitely pushes at normal romantic boundaries. But the ending, not the part with the brother, the ending where everything is just like perfectly happy, like they get their happily ever after. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have their happily ever after. I'm not saying they didn't deserve that. I think they did. But the way that it's done, I really wish that there had have been like a darker or more open-ended ending. Definitely graphic sexual content in this book. I remember when I read this for the first time last year, this was the first book that I'd ever read that had a threesome scene in it. There is a threesome scene towards the end, and like when I read it for the first time, I was like, whoa, romance books have these? I was shocked. So I guess props for having that inclusion, I guess. There is also a scene where nothing really happens, but Erica tries to like hook up with a girl to get back at Michael, which, like, come on girl, if you're gonna hook up with a girl, do it for yourself. Like, Michael doesn't make her, but she's like trying to mess with Michael, so she like hooks up with a girl, and I'm like, come on, like, do it for yourself, don't do it for a guy. That's so dumb. And I mean, nothing really happens. It's not explicit. It's probably the tamest like steamy scene in the book, which, I mean, disappointing, but also it would have been irrelevant. So I will also say I took note of a few like things that would probably make a lot of people uncomfortable, like a lot of forced kisses, a lot of intimidating, like physical intimidation, which definitely crosses lines. So like, for example, the guys, they will definitely all like, they push Erica around a lot and things like that, and they are like, we can do whatever we want with your body kind of thing, and she's like, no. So there's that kind of like non-consensual kind of boundary crossing aspect to it. There's also a few discussions of assault, sexual assault, but I definitely think the main thing that comes across is that there is a lot of consensual vagueness at times, which isn't the most comfiest thing to read, I will say that. But yeah, definitely dark, definitely a little bit twisted. I definitely like how towards the end you see why, like, reading it the second time around, I think definitely makes the story make more sense. The first time I read this, I was very much like, why is she even giving these guys the time of the day? They're obviously terrible people. But you do kind of realize that they are very, I don't know, they've definitely been affected by the time that they spent in prison, by the things that they've done. And I mean, you read the later books and you also learn a lot about their backstory, which I think for most of the characters is not good. So it's like they're definitely all, like, just everything about this is quite dark. And I mean, it's definitely interesting. But I do like how Penelope Douglas gives you these characters who are so terrible, and you're just like, who could ever love them? What the hell? And then you just, I don't know, you learn about them, you learn about what is going on with them, and you start to understand them. I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense or if what I'm saying is any good. But that is the first book done. I am going to go on and read the second book now. I can't remember what it's called. I think it might be Hideaway, maybe. But I'm just going to get straight into the second book, and I will update you guys once I read a little bit of that. So I finished Hideaway, the second book in the Devil Knights series. How do I feel? I felt a lot of things, right? Thoughts and opinions. Interestingly enough, when I went in, I was like, I don't really remember much about this. I knew it was about Kai, and I like vaguely remembered kind of the plot. Mainly just the plot twist, like the main plot, that kind of thing. And I found out why, because I went and looked back on my Goodreads review. Turns out I gave this book a 3 stars, and it was the one I liked the least out of the 3 that I read last year. Did not like this book. Apparently I thought Kai was a letdown. I hated Banks, who is the female main character / love interest, and I hated the plot. Apparently I just didn't like anything about this, which, look, I'm like, what was she thinking? I loved this. This was so good. I am giving this a 4 stars this time around. A 4 out of 5 stars. This was so good. It's just so good. Penelope Douglas has done this really well. I will definitely say this felt a lot less dark than Corrupt. Romance-wise, the plot is actually kind of intense. Like, it's kind of spooky. There's a whole lot of kind of haunted hotels kind of thing, and I mean, the whole plot of the book, basically, besides the romance, is Damon at the end of book 1 leaves and he's gone missing, and it's been a year since the end of the first book, and they don't know where he is, and they're trying to find him. So that's basically the plot of the book. They're trying to find Damon, they're trying to figure out where he is, and I mean, a lot happens in this book. That's not like the plot of the book, but that is like the main action going on. Everyone's trying to find Damon, but they're also worried that Damon is going to find them. They're all very scared of Damon. He's entirely mentally unstable, and they are terrified of what he might do, right? So everyone's looking for Damon. Kai is having his romance with Banks, which we learn through both of their POVs and flashbacks, just like Corrupt, that Banks and Kai had one night together years ago. I think like the year or 2 years before the night that they spent with Rika. So Banks's night was like years and years ago. They had one night together. They really liked each other. Banks is very mysterious. She never tells Kai who she is. It's a big mystery. Turns out Banks is Damon's half sister, so they're related. And Banks is like the only female that he trusts. And we learn this because his mother sexually assaults him, basically. We don't see any of that, but that is like revealed in this book. It's mentioned in the first book, but it's like really, I mean, we learn a lot about Damon and what's happened to him and why he is so messed up in this book, which I think is really good because the next book, the third book, is Damon's book. So I'm assuming it's like lead up context for the third book, right? It makes the romance between Kai and Banks super complicated, but it's so good. It is so good. Their romance is incredible. It's very much Banks has been abused and like terrified her whole life. She's been treated terribly by everyone, kind of also by Damon, but Damon is like the person who's treated her the best up until this point. And then Kai comes along and he's like, I really like you, so I'm going to take care of you and treat you like a human being and actually be nice to you and let you do what you want in your own life. And it is just so fucking sweet. The bare minimum, for sure, but like so nice. And so Banks is here for the first time, having someone who actually genuinely cares for her and is looking out for her. And she's like, oh, is this what everyone gets? Because wow, this is nice. And yes, girl, it is nice. Whew. I did say though, in my Goodreads review when I read this last year, I mentioned that the plot was a little bit repetitive, and I think when I wrote that, I was meaning like the romance slash like the sex plot in particular, because definitely very similar vibes. Also, there was another like girl scene. I cannot believe none of the girls in this book are straight. At least not Rika, not Alex, not Banks. They are absolutely not straight. But once again, in this book, the girl on girl scene was again to like get back at the guys, like to spite the guys kind of thing. And it's just like, come on. Penelope Douglas, if she ever wrote a female book, I would probably cease to exist. It would be so great. It would be so great, especially if like what we've seen from these two books was carried over into this female book and explored more. I think that would be great. But definitely none of the girls in this book are straight, and it's kind of irritating to me that it's like explored through this like purpose for getting back at men. And it's definitely more steamy than the girl scene in Corrupt. Definitely a little bit more goes on, but I mean, no like full sex, just a heavy makeout session basically. I understand that the girls have their guys, and that's fine. I'm not saying that there should be a focus on the female scenes, but also why it's 2 books in a row, Penelope. I'm just curious. You're trying to say something, you know? Why not like come on, you can write a female romance if you want. The people would love you for it, truly, they would. So definitely there are a few like similarities in the plot, kind of similar vibes, but overall I loved this a lot more than Corrupt. Definitely a lot less dark in the romance because Kai is the nicest of the 4, I believe, and so like he genuinely wants Banks to have a life and feel safe, which, you know, is nice. But that was Hideaway. It was very, very good. I liked it a lot more than Corrupt. And now I get to go on and read, is it Devil Switch? Going into it, I know I've already read it, but I can barely remember what happens, and right now I'm just very much like, Damon is terrible. How is Penelope Douglas gonna switch this around? Very interested to see. It's going to be interesting to see like the psychological aspect to it, for sure. Also interested to see if, because Damon is the worst, how dark the 3rd book is going to be. I can't remember it being so dark. I don't remember thinking that it was too terrible. Corrupt is definitely like, at least to me, Corrupt is like a bit shocking in the sense that it's definitely a lot to take in. Maybe you just get adjusted to it as you go on in the series, I don't know. But Hideaway definitely felt like a step down, so I don't know with Kill Switch if we're going to go back up to more fucked up levels, or if we're going to like take another step down, or if we're going to stay at this level of fucked up things are happening, but it's like not ruining the story, you know? But I'm just going to get to reading, so I will let you guys know what I think once I've done that for a little bit. Okay, so update. I finished reading Kill Switch by Penelope Douglas, the 3rd book in the Devil's Night series. Oh my goodness. A lot happens in this book. A lot happens. I would also say it's probably the hardest one to read so far out of the three, for sure, in terms of like explicit content. But when I say a lot happens, a lot happens. This book definitely feels like it's kind of changing, shifting, like less focus on the romance and more towards the plot. Things are all kind of coming together and plans are being made and things are being revealed. Everything's kind of coming into the light. It's all being revealed, right? Killswitch is obviously the story about Damon and his love interest Winter. Props to Winter, she is blind. I think she was one of the first like blind characters that I had read in a book when I read this last year, and I really like how, I mean, it's definitely an issue for her in the story that lots of people treat her, you know, they're like, you can't live a normal life because you're blind. They definitely treat her like she's disabled and she can't really do anything now with her life. Her family is really terrible about her blindness. She essentially became blind from an accident. She fell from a tree, optical nerve damage, hit her head, that kind of thing. So she could see as a child and then she lost her sight, and since then her family's been really horrible about it. Basically everyone treats her like she can't do anything, and so their relationship is kind of similar to Michael and Rika's in the first book, in the sense that Damon doesn't treat Winter like she's disabled and she can't do anything. He actually shows her a lot of things that she never thought she'd be able to do. There's like a really nice scene where he takes her on a drive and she drives. That was really fucking cute, which you wouldn't expect from Damon Torrance, who is the worst of these characters. And that is like also the other part of this book, revealing Damon's character and like why he acts how he acts. And I mean, there's a lot to unpack in this book. I mean, we learned that he was in solitary for the 3 years that he was in prison, and he says that definitely did something to him, and it absolutely would. Like, he didn't see anyone really in prison. This book also talks about the sexual abuse Damon goes through as a young teenager, I'm pretty sure, but definitely there are scenes about that, which is hard to hear. I mean, you learn at the end that it's actually not as bad as you think it is, which sounds terrible. Like, I'm not saying the act itself isn't bad, but it isn't as bad. You just have to read it to find out. I don't want to like spoil plot points, because I think the plot is definitely dark and mysterious and interesting, but definitely Damon's character is a big part of this, because I mean, he's so terrible. How could someone love him, and how can he be redeemed, basically? And I'm not gonna lie, I don't think Miss Penelope did the best job at showing the psychological effects of everything that's happened to him, because like it's all explained. So I mean, as a reader, you can figure out what this has done to him and how, like, why he acts the way he acts. It's all explained. I'm not saying it's not explained, but definitely I felt towards the end that everything just kind of was like resolved a little bit too quickly. Like, I just feel like everything was just brushed aside. Like, he kind of was just like, oh, if I choose not to let these things affect me, I can find love. And then he found love, and I was like, I don't think it's that simple. Maybe send this boy to therapy, but I mean, it is what it is. I also feel like the conflict between Winter and Damon was resolved kind of quickly. Their whole thing, it's very much an enemies to lovers romance. We learn through flashbacks that when Winter's about 16, there is a guy, obviously she's blind, there's a guy who shows up and he doesn't tell her who he is, but that's when, you know, they do the driving scene. He like watches her dance, he tells her that she's really pretty. She falls for this mysterious guy who she doesn't know, and we know that it's Damon. Like, it's very obvious to us, the reader, that it's Damon, but Winter has no idea who it is, and they eventually have sex. They sleep together, and like that's the whole reason that Damon gets into jail, because he sleeps with a minor, because she was 16 and I think he was like 18 or 19 at the time, I don't know. And I mean, Winter very much wanted to sleep with Damon, but he gets sent to prison for rape because she didn't know who he was, and afterwards when she finds out that it was Damon, she was like, I didn't want to sleep with you. I thought I was sleeping with this really nice guy who I didn't know the name of. It's kind of like, it's kind of stupid. Not saying that it's stupid for her, like that it happened to her. I think it's kind of weird that she did want to sleep with a random stranger. I know they had all these moments and they built up all this trust, but I'm also like, honey, it could have been anyone. It could have been anyone. Anyone. It could have been way worse than Damon, which sounds terrible to say, but I mean, like, it could have been any creepy old guy, right? I don't know why she didn't get his name before doing that, but anyway, he rightfully gets sent to prison for that, and he comes out and he's mad at Winter for her sending him to prison, which doesn't really make sense. And then just at the end, she's like, oh, I love him too much. That's just it. I'm sick of not loving him, so I'm just going to love him. And I'm like, that's fine. That's fine. But also, it didn't really add up. But I definitely think this was the hardest to read in terms of the content, just because of Damon's horrible upbringing and the relationship between Winter and Damon, like the origins of what happened when they were teenagers, that kind of whole mistrust thing where Damon like lied to her about who he was, and then obviously she fell in love with him, but she didn't know it was him. That whole thing definitely, I think, makes it a very complex story. When I read it last year, I gave it 4 stars, and I think I'm going to keep my rating at 4 stars. It's definitely steamy. I would say that's another thing. The sex scenes in this, I don't know what it is. I think it was also hard to read because the conflict between them wasn't resolved, and then it was resolved so quickly that a lot of the sex scenes, it was just kind of like hard to read, because you know that there's still so much to like resolve between them. I found it hard for me to read anyway. But I mean, definitely steamy. There's another threesome scene in the story at the end between Damon, Winter, and Will, which I'm not gonna lie, I had to stop reading before I read that because they literally had just almost died, and Will full on is having a panic attack because they almost drowned, and at the end of the first book he almost drowns in the ocean, like he almost dies, and so he's having this huge panic attack, freaking out, obviously, as you would. And then, I mean, they help him calm down, but then straight away they're just like, okay, threesome. And I'm not saying that wouldn't happen in real life. Maybe it would. Maybe it would, but I did in that moment feel my soul leave my body, and I just had to stop reading and go, this is definitely a piece of fiction. I couldn't take it. I personally couldn't take it. That was just a bit ridiculous to me, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not saying the threesome was bad. I mean, I think honestly it was kind of really lovely, considering Damon's terrible abuse and his very, very complicated feelings and thinkings towards love and like sex in general. And so it is kind of nice in the sense that he really loves and trusts Winter and Will together, and so like the threesome is sweet in that way. I never thought I would be talking on fucking YouTube about how lovely a threesome is anyway. But also at the start of the book you do learn that Will and Damon kind of have a closer relationship than any of the other guys do, that they've had a few moments. I definitely think Penelope Douglas should go ahead and write some queer fiction. I think it would be incredible. But that is basically Kill Switch. Definitely hard to read, definitely content warning for abuse in many forms. But I could honestly say it was probably the best book in the series so far. I think I like Hideaway better, but in terms of plot, this one was really good. Very suspenseful, very dark, very mysterious. A lot being hinted at, a lot being set up. I'm very excited for the 4th book, not only because I haven't read it, but I want to see how everything, you know, comes to an end. I will say I am a little bit conflicted because there is a short story between this book, Kill Switch, and the 4th book. Is it Conclave or is it Nightfall? I think it's Nightfall. Conclave, I think, is the short story, the name of the short story. And the short story is, I feel like it's going to be important to the plot for me to read it, but I don't think you do have to read it before you read the final book, but I feel like I should. But also I just want to go straight to the final book. I don't want to read a short story as well. So Conclave is the short story, Nightfall is the final book. This is Will's book, and I thought Will's book was going to be boring, but I'm actually very excited to read it. Will has been growing on me throughout the series, I'm not going to lie. Does it say it is necessary to read the prior installments in the series before starting this story? So I guess that means the short story as well. How short is it? 95 pages, and it's available for free. I guess that's not too bad. I think I might read Conclave very, very quickly, and then jump as quickly as I can into Nightfall, because I really, really want to read that. I'm very, very excited for this series to end. Seeing how short Conclave is, I don't think I'll vlog while I read it. I think I might just try read it and then give a general little thought dump at the end. But I will hopefully be vlogging Nightfall. Okay, so I didn't update you guys after I finished reading Conclave, and that's because nothing fucking happened in that short story. All you really need to know is Will is missing. That's it. Like, that is really it, and that's kind of hinted at the end of Kill Switch. So I really didn't have to read it. But I have started Nightfall. I'm not very far in. I'm up to like chapter 7 or something like that. Nightfall so far. We start off, Emery finds herself in Blackchurch. Blackchurch is this, it says on the like description of the book that it's a really fancy mansion that like rich people send their sons to if their sons are like misbehaving and embarrassing kind of thing, right? And when Emery wakes up, she's like, surely this is a joke, because Blackchurch is like an urban legend, it doesn't actually exist. And she wakes up and there are all these guys with her, and they're like, we could be anywhere. Blackchurch, the location of Blackchurch changes. We have no idea where we are. Which, honestly, very cool kind of premise. They're in a house, it's really, really fancy, like super, super rich. They have no idea where they are. And it's just a bunch of these super rich boys whose fathers have just like sent them off to Blackchurch because they don't want to be like embarrassed by their sons. I mean, I say boys, they're men. Will is like, I think Will's probably like 25 at this point or something like that. They're in their 20s. They are men. And so Emery has no idea how she's got there, what she's doing. She's clueless. She is lost. She has no idea. She's the only girl at Blackchurch, and all the guys are kind of like, woohoo. Also kind of weird, they have like an alpha guy and he like controls all the boys. It's a little bit cringe, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I've cringed a little bit so far while reading this, just a few times. Will is not the alpha. Will just kind of stays to himself. He does his own thing, and he didn't expect Emery to be there. So they say, I'm a little bit confused, honestly, because Will said that he wanted to like not get revenge on Emery, but he said that he had to like sort some stuff out with her. And at the end of the first book, Corrupt, it's basically said that, because the whole plot of Corrupt is that they're all trying to get back at Erica because they think that she was the one who outed them to the police. But at the end of Corrupt, you find out that it wasn't Erica, it was someone else. But now, going into Nightfall, Emery is the one saying that she is the one that outed them to the police. She's like, it's my fault that they all went to jail. Maybe she didn't out them to the police. Maybe it has something to do with the trial. I don't know. Anyway, I'm a bit confused as to how she sent them to jail when we've already got someone who sent them to jail, if you know what I mean. So I'm really interested to see how this all works out. We've had a few flashbacks to Emery and Will in high school. Will has always been interested in Emery. Honestly, Emery comes from a very troubled home. Her grandma is really sick and she looks after her. Both of her parents are dead. She has an older brother who is a policeman and he is abusive. He is terrible to her. We hate to see it. That was really horrible to read. It wasn't like too graphic or anything, but it was just sad, right? And Will has just always liked Emery, and I'm not gonna lie, I think Will might be my favorite. I mean, we haven't seen much of Will in Blackchurch, so high school Will in particular, I'm like, wow, this boy. Ooh. But also Will, in the past few books, I think I said he's been growing on me. I think he might come to be my favorite of the four. There is potential. But so far we haven't really had many of Will's point of views. I don't know, there's not really much for him to say. He's kind of just like, wow, Emery's here. So really everything exciting is happening for Emery because she's trying to figure out where she is, what's going on, that kind of thing. Okay, I am not even halfway through this book and I think I can say Will is my favorite of the four horsemen. Holy shit, I love this boy with my whole heart. This character dynamic is always one of my favorites. I can never handle it. I can never handle it when there's one character who's just so closed off and angry because of what they've been through, and then there's the one character who's like, I see you and I love you. And this is mostly being shown through the flashbacks in the high school scenes. The high school scenes are killing me. They're so fucking sweet. I swear to God, if a guy treated me like that in high school, the way that Will treats Emery, I would have been swooning left, right, and center. Holy shit. It is so good. I love it. I love it. Also a lot easier to get behind in the romance, I will say, when the guy isn't being a total douche to the love interest like most of the other books have been. Definitely this is like similar to Hideaway. Kai was always like the nicest of the guys, at least like openly. Will was just very quiet, so no one really thought he was like nice. Kai was the nice one. And I liked Kai's book because he was nice, and now I'm liking Will's book because he was nice. Was nice past tense. Now that he's been in prison and also in Black Church, he's a bit rougher. He's a bit, you know, he's gone through some shit, and so he's not as sweet and lovey-dovey as he was as a teenager, obviously. Okay, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Honestly, we still haven't learnt much in terms of like the plot, how Emery got there, what is happening. We still really have no idea. I just read a very interesting part where Emery is in her room at Black Church and Alex shows up. Alex, I don't know if I've mentioned Alex in the previous series. She is the group's friend. She's a prostitute. I think she meets the guys first and then she becomes friends with Rika, and then she's just like in the group. She's a part of the group. Always has been very close to Will. Like Will has always been Alex's favorite. And now she seems to know Emery, and I don't know how that, they seem very close. Like Alex comes in and she's like haha, like hi, and Emery hugs her, so they obviously know each other. One, how do they know each other? Two, how is Alex there? How does Emery, I don't know, Emery didn't seem entirely surprised that Alex was there. Also, it does seem like Alex had something to do with Emery going into Black Church, kind of. But it's all a mystery. I have no idea what the fuck is going on, and I want to know so badly. I am definitely loving this one a lot. I also really like, I mean, in the other ones, they're kind of like hints at like urban legends kind of things, but this one is really playing into the kind of urban legends, mysteries from the past kind of aspect. So obviously Black Church was always an urban legend, and now they're in Black Church. In the flashbacks, we see that Emery is given a key to a room in a church, and when she gets given the key and goes to the room, there's a note, and it's like, this is, I can't remember the name of the room, but like, this is the room, and once you've finished using it, you pass the key on to someone else. Don't tell anyone else about the room. And people have heard about the room, but they don't think it's real because obviously only one person at a time knows about it, has the key. And so that's like, that's kind of cool. There's like this secret mystery, and they also talk about a like kind of legend of the town that they all grew up in, Thunder Bay, of a kid who went to like the high school that they all went to in the past in the flashbacks, and this kid died, he died, and he's like kind of seen as a legend. And so we're like learning about this kid from the past and his legend. We're learning about that too. I don't know, it's just all very fun, all very dark, all very mysterious. Also very sexy, very sexy. This book is very sexy. I kind of can't take it. It's almost a bit too much for me. I'm like reading this and I'm fanning myself. It's very smutty, very good. It feels almost smuttier than all the other ones. Almost. I don't want to be bold and say that it is, but also it kind of is. We've already had several sex scenes in the books, and it's before the 50% mark. So I would say this is probably one of the smuttiest ones. It is the smuttiest book in the series. Probably. I do kind of hesitate to say that though, because obviously reading the first three, I'd already read them before, and I'm sure when I read them for the first time last year, I was like, whoa, these are like really steamy. But because it was a reread, I can't tell if I think it wasn't as steamy as the first time, and because I'm reading Nightfall for the first time, I'm like, whoa, this is like a lot. I can't really tell, but also I do think it is a lot sexier than the other ones. Overall, incredible, going great. I'm really enjoying myself. I want to know what is going on with everything so badly. So I'm just going to keep reading. Okay, a lot has happened. What has happened since I last updated. I have to stop because I think a lot has happened, and I think an orgy is about to happen, and I'm very confused as to how we got here. I'm very, very confused. I can't even think. What I told you last time was like Alex had arrived at the place. I think that's it. Alex arrived. She was sent by Michael and Kai and everyone, and she was going to save Will. No one knows that Emery is there. Turns out Emery was there because Aiden, I don't know if I mentioned Aiden got her in. Aiden was already in Black Church. He was the alpha that I said was kind of like cringy. That's him. That's Aiden. There's just so much to unpack. There's so much. Anyway, they got out of Black Church. It was really, really confusing. There was a lot, and I don't know really how it happened. They locked Aiden up in the basement. They escaped. Michael and Kai and Damon came for them, got them out, whatever. That was a lot. I honestly was very confused reading all of that, which was very fast paced, and I just kept going. I didn't want to try to reread it and understand. They escaped. That's all I really need to know. And we found out how Emery was the one to blame for them going to jail. Basically, we all know how Emery came from an abusive household. Her brother abused her. Yeah, right. So, on the night that Damon, Kai, and Will got arrested, Emery's brother, who was a policeman, got Emery in and, like, brought her into the station and was like, if you don't sign this form saying that, like, the boys have done more than just the videos that were released, like, they assaulted some girls and stuff like that, I'll kill our grandmother, right? Emery really cares for her grandmother. We see this throughout the book. And so her brother basically essentially forces Emery to sign this, like, non-disclosure form or whatever, saying that she was assaulted by other boys, and that is basically, like, the leverage that her brother used to actually send the boys to jail. He basically manipulated anyone. He's such a dick. Anyway, so Emery was forced into sending them to jail, kind of, and they all blame her for some reason, even though she explained that she didn't want to and that she was forced into it by her abusive brother. I really don't get it. Like, I get that they're mad that they had to go to jail, but also it's been years since they were released from jail, and they mentioned that they're mostly mad because it's like they kept trying to get revenge. They, like, tried to mess with Erica, and they've been blaming the wrong people for so long when it was Emery. It was multiple people. And also, Emery pointed out they did the crimes. Come on. Anyway. And now, for some reason, Alex is mad at Emery because when Emery was staying at Black Church, obviously Aiden was the alpha, whatever. Emery's parents died when she was very young, and in Black Church, Aiden had a plan. Aiden protected her, and so she felt safe with Aiden. And for some reason, Alex is now jealous of Emery. And I mean, Emery's been jealous of Alex because, like, people have been hinting that Alex and Will slept together a lot. Anyway. And so they're really, really mad. And now they're making out in a room full of people. And I'm pretty sure it's all just going to turn into a giant orgy. And if what I've said to get to this point makes no sense, that's because I don't think it makes sense. I'm so confused. What? Anyway, I just had to take a moment. I thought talking about it would maybe help me understand it more. It really hasn't. I'm still confused, but I think I have to read through this. Hopefully if I read through this, I'll understand. Maybe something will make sense by the end of the book.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
So I finished Nightfall by Penelope Douglas. Finished with the Devil's Night series. I know, like, my last update, I was confused. The plot was confusing. And I said I hope that it would clear up and make more sense. I don't think it did. I think I've been confused for the whole ending of that book. There was a lot happened. The orgy, yes. A marriage, a big wedding. split into 2 parts. Gangs were brought in. I'm lost. I'm very, very lost. Like, when I say the ending was so messy, but I loved the start of this so much. I want to give it a 5 stars for the start, and I want to give it a 1 star for the ending. It made no sense. I mean, like, it did make sense. Like, the plot happened and it made sense, but it was so confusing and just so much. There was so much going on. So much. I think I just need to think on this for a little bit. I think I need to think. Currently, I'm still confused. I have no idea. So, I might come and wrap this up once I've had a moment to think about things. Alright, so it's been a few days and I've had some time to think about Nightfall. I've gone on Goodreads, I've written a review, I gave it a rating. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Even though I'm kind of regretting that now. I think if I'm being honest with myself, this book is definitely more of like a 2-star rating, potentially even a 1-star rating, but I decided on a 3 because I really, really loved Will, and I loved his relationship with Emery, especially the flashbacks to their relationship in high school. That shit was so fucking cute, so good. I loved that so much. That fed my soul. It was incredible. But then we have pretty much everything else that was in the book that made me want to give it a 1-star rating. That was genuinely one of the worst things I've ever read in my life. I'm not even gonna lie. The last 30% of that book was not good. I think it would have been so much better if Miss Penelope Douglas had a story. We learn about Will, we learn about Emery, their relationship, and Black Church. They escape Black Church, and then she ended the book, and then there was a last book where all of the plot and all the relationships came to an end. I think if she had written another book, it would have been so much better. Nightfall was pretty disappointing, and that really pains me to say it. I mean, I don't think this series is my favorite of Penelope Douglas's, or like in general of romance books that I have read, but I mean, as I said, like, reading it, I really liked Hideaway, I really liked Will. I did enjoy the series, I did enjoy reading it, and I was really hoping for Nightfall to be a really, really good ending, and it just wasn't. Very much let down. I'm very disappointed. I'm kind of very upset about it, but that's okay. Would I say that the series overall is smutty? Yes. Yes, I would. Would I say it was a little bit taboo? Yes. Yes, I would. But hesitantly, because taboo in the sense that the relationship is very dark, not... because honestly, like, when I think of taboo romances, I think of some of Penelope Douglas's other works, for example, Birthday Girl, which is an age gap romance, Bully, which is a bully romance, friggin' Credence, which is like testing family limit relationships, right? It sounds so weird out of context. Anyway, I don't think the relationships themselves in the Devil's Night series were taboo. I think the taboo part came in with the way that the relationships were, if that makes sense. Obviously, there are a lot of mind games, like unhealthy relationships, honestly, that, like, if we're being blunt, unhealthy relationships, and I don't know, that doesn't necessarily come to mind when I think of taboo. It's more like just bad romance. So I mean, taboo, yes, kind of, but not definitely the taboo aspect to do with like some of the plot points and things like that. For example, the whole plot point of Damon and his upbringing and his sexual abuse, like that, definitely more like, I guess, like taboo topics, but not necessarily taboo romance. It's dark, definitely dark, definitely a little bit twisted, and I guess that's taboo because, I mean, a lot of people I could see would read this and think, what the fuck, and probably wouldn't like it. So I guess, taboo in that sense. It's definitely not your generic soft sweet romance. So now that I finished the series, I think overall I would rate it a 3 out of 5 stars. Not outstanding, entertaining, definitely. The ending, a letdown, so of course it can't be a 5, but not fantastic. I think we can do better. So for October, the video will be coming out in November, but over October I'm going to be reading the next series for this series, and that is going to be the Bargainer series by Laura Thalassa. This series starts with the book Rhapsodic, and I've picked this series because I've heard a lot about it, particularly on TikTok, and it often gets compared to Sarah J. Maas, except it is actually adult, and apparently it is actually NSFW. Obviously Sarah J. Maas, except for her newest books, writes young adult, and I'm sick of people calling her books smut when they are absolutely not in any way able to be classified as smut. So Rhapsodic, apparently the Bargainer series, is similar vibes. I'm pretty sure there is a fae element involved, but I think the main character is actually a siren. But apparently it's smutty. I chose paranormal because obviously October, spooky season, why would I not? So if you want to read this trilogy over October, feel free to join me. I would love to hear your thoughts on these books. I would kind of like this series to be kind of like a book club, sort of, where we can all read these books together, except I don't really want to host a book club, at least not yet. So for now, I'm probably just going to vlog my reading progress of these books, but I will let you know the series in advance, so if you want to read them before the video goes up, you can, and we can have a discussion in the comments, all that stuff. And obviously this is the first in the series, so understandable if you haven't read this, but if you have, definitely comment down below. Let me know what you think of the Devil Knight series. I would love to hear your thoughts, or even just your thoughts on Penelope Douglas if you've read some of her work, whether you like it, whether you don't like it. But that is it for this video, the first installment in this series. I'm very excited. I hope you enjoyed it. You can expect the next video in early November sometime. But that is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys with another video sometime soon. Bye!